They told me retirement would be the quiet part of life. The years you finally get to breathe after decades of chaos and waking up before sunrise for somebody else's mission. But, you know, nobody warns you that sometimes the quiet can get loud all over again. For me, it started simple. A modest cedar-shingled house perched on Ridgeview Hills. Nothing flashy, just a watchtower for a worn-out old Army ops officer who still couldn't shake the habit of standing guard, even off-duty. The back patio looked out on a dry, scruffy slope tumbling down toward a so-called greenbelt, which on paper belonged to the HOA, but in reality was just a thicket of sage, thorns, and the occasional plastic bag tumbling by on a windy day. I liked it that way. Less people, less hassle. But sometimes a quiet life is just the calm before the storm. You know what I mean? See, when I bought this place, the seller was eager, too eager. I didn't ask enough questions. I'd just lost my wife, I was tired, and I needed a deal. What I didn't realize was that this greenbelt behind my property relied on my slope, my retaining wall, my foundation, my drainage. All of it holding back not just earth, but a whole avalanche of trouble I didn't see coming. For a while, it was good. I paid my dues, kept my lawn mowed, ignored the passive-aggressive newsletters about mailbox color codes and seasonally appropriate flags. The HOA, Ridgeview Lakeside Community Association, yeah, Lakeside, though the nearest lake's 40 minutes away, just kind of hovered in the background. Until Karen Jennings rolled in like a storm cloud with a pastel sweater and a clipboard, and everything started to change. I'd heard all the Karen jokes. If I had a nickel for every warning about HOA Karens, I'd have bought a pizza oven by now. But nothing really prepares you for meeting the real thing. The person who turns rules into weapons and walks around acting like she was put on earth to make sure you follow them. She nailed me in the first week, walking my fence line like she owned it, sunglasses at parade rest on her nose, pointing out weeds and a decorative flag she didn't like. This kind of informal decor isn't permitted under Ridgeview standardization guidelines. I laughed. Big mistake. Next week, I had a warning. 2 days after that, a fine. That was the start. Suddenly, Karen had a whole campaign going. Beautification, she called it. New flower beds, widened trails, a mini dog park proposal, all green-lit by her rubber stamp board. I tried to keep my head down. I'd seen enough bureaucratic overreach on military bases to know small people can get real dangerous when you give them a badge, or a title, or a clipboard. But Karen was getting close, literally. One April morning, I heard the beeping, loud, industrial, out of place. I stepped outside to see a full-sized yellow backhoe chewing into the base of my hill, contractors marking the dirt with orange paint, a portable toilet standing sentinel. Drainage trench. One of the workers told me, barely looking up. HOA ordered it. Said the slope was eroding. My slope. Only, I had the deed, the plat, every survey since escrow. I'd been maintaining that slope for 2 years, patching the drainage pipe after the first real rain. I called the HOA office, nothing but voicemail. Emailed, got an auto reply. So, I did what any stubborn old grunt would do. I grabbed my property file, drove straight to the community center, and found the office locked. Karen wasn't there. That night, I called a lawyer buddy from my old unit. Property rights specialist now. She confirmed my gut. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was a violation. She told me, document everything. Next day I did. Walked the hill with a camera, filmed the machines, the trench lines, even the tire tracks. I had proof. But what none of us knew, not me, not Karen, not the workers, was what that hill was really holding up. On the far edge, anchored in bedrock, stood a high-voltage utility pole, old as sin, holding up lines that fed 40 houses. With every scoop of dirt they took, they were undermining the thing that kept it standing. Next morning, more machinery. The backhoe moved higher up, now chewing into my side of the property line, past the old retaining wall I'd just reinforced last fall. I flagged the operator, told him, "You're trespassing. Shut it down." He didn't even blink. Just swung the boom toward the base of the pole. That's when I started filming everything, close-ups on the tags, the stakes, the scar in the earth creeping onto my legal boundary. When I finally confronted a man in an HOA polo, he gave me the line about shared runoff channels and community hazard mitigation. I pulled up my survey on my phone, told him, "That's my lot, not yours. What you're doing is actionable trespass." He said I'd have to talk to Karen. Trust me, I planned to. At the next HOA meeting, I showed up in jeans and my old army jacket, folder under my arm. The board looked like they were running a lemonade stand, except for Karen, center of attention, pastel armor, cool as ice. I'm here about the illegal excavation on my slope, I said, loud and clear. She claimed it was all approved, that notices had gone out. You don't have the legal right, I shot back. I have the plat, the deed, and the survey. She flashed a tight smile. We had our own surveyor. He better be licensed, I said, or you're in a heap of trouble. I put a photo of their backhoe 10 feet inside my boundary on the table. Someone in the crowd gasped. I walked out. Next morning, the backhoe was gone, but after a rain, I found a soft patch near the pole's base. Not a collapse, not yet, but a warning. That pole, with its faded serial number and rusted panel, carried 230 kilovolts, anchored in my soil, now partially undermined by HOA hubris. I called the county utility. We'll get to it next week, they said. I didn't have a week. That night, power flickered, then died. Outside, in the moonlight, I saw it. The pole leaning, 10, maybe 15 degrees off, lines sagging like a tightrope about to snap. My old instincts kicked in. Could feel the soil shifting, hear the dry hiss of earth giving way. I didn't sleep. Every gust made the old house creak. Every noise could have been the earth moving. At dawn, the pole had shifted 2 more inches. I spent the day gathering evidence. Photos, video, laser levels, voice memos. I emailed everything to the county, the state, even the Department of Energy. By noon, the slope made a noise like tearing cloth. The pole's rebar footing was exposed like a broken bone. I marked off a danger zone, called 911. Imminent infrastructure collapse, high voltage pole. That got their attention. Police, fire, utility trucks arrived. Karen pulled up, perfect as always, Mercedes shining, lip gloss on, and for the first time, she looked rattled. The utility supervisor asked, "Did you notify us before digging?" Karen tried to wiggle, claimed she thought it was outside the minimum radius. "You were wrong," he said. "You're lucky this hasn't killed anyone." Her armor cracked. Crews worked into the night, bracing the pole, shutting down power. The next morning, I got an HOA letter, compliance review for obstruction. I laughed out loud. Obstruction? All I did was keep 40 homes from burning down. End of the week, the county engineer's report came in. Unauthorized excavation, improper stabilization, full liability on the HOA. I taped a copy to Karen's door. She yanked it off, but it didn't change a thing. Rain was coming. The trench was still open, no stabilization, and the only thing holding the pole up was luck and a handful of steel cables. When the storm hit, the hill turned to mud. I walked the fence line, flashlight in hand, and heard the long, slow groan of metal. The pole started to move, just enough to catch the light. I ran to Dennis' house, retired firefighter, good man, yelled at him to evacuate. He didn't argue. Then I shouted to the next house. Made it back to my deck just as the ground let go. The sound, earth tearing, metal screaming, a crash, and then darkness. Alarms, dogs, sirens. In 10 minutes, the whole street was a disaster zone. And right in the middle of it all, Karen Jennings, clipboard clutched like a shield, barking at a utility worker who ignored her. Finally, an engineer came over, shook my hand, and said, "Your report saved lives. We're opening a formal investigation into the HOA." For the first time, I felt the tide turn. But Karen wasn't done. Next day, a hand-delivered letter. Cease and desist. Compliance review. Threatened fines. I scanned it, sent it to my lawyer, and pinned a copy on my corkboard under Keep Everything. Then came the twist. At City Hall, I discovered the HOA had filed a fake map, shifting the property line 30 feet onto my land. Fraud, plain and simple. I brought the real blueprint, signed by my late father-in-law, to the city. "This is going to get loud," the clerk said. "Good," I told him. And then it happened. The pole finally fell, triggered by the rain, exactly as I'd warned. The fallout was fast. Emergency HOA meeting, neighbors demanding answers, the whole board squirming while I laid out the original surveys, the forged map, the certified engineering report. Karen tried to spin, but the residents were done listening. Dennis spoke up, others followed, and the Rayall story came out. Fines, threats, retaliation, fraud. The city stepped in, investigation, projects frozen, Karen barred from any HOA activities. For the first time in years, people waved to me on the street, dropped off cookies, said thanks. I was asked to help rewrite the rules, not just for us, but for the whole county. The Phase 2 project was dead. Fines nullified. Karen's lawsuit against me evaporated the moment my lawyer sent the covenant. 3 signatures required for any work on my slope, none of which she had. The biggest victory wasn't in court, though. It was the day I saw real restoration begin. Native wildflowers, new paths, proper drainage installed by people who knew what they were doing. My hill looked like it belonged. The neighborhood felt lighter. Karen vanished behind her curtains, power gone. One evening, Dennis and his wife came by for barbecue. We watched the lights flicker on across the valley, felt the old tension ease. Later, I found a note in my mailbox. No name, just thanks for reminding us we're not helpless. That meant more than any headline ever could. You know, it's funny. I used to think retirement meant stepping back, fading out. But what I learned, maybe the hard way, is that dignity isn't something you give up because someone waves a clipboard or files a fake plat line. Sometimes you have to fight, not just for yourself, but for the whole block. And when you do, you realize there's a whole army of people behind you, just waiting for someone to stand up first. So what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Or did I just make trouble? Comment below, tell me where you stand. Because at the end of the day, the only way a community works is when folks remember, you've got a voice. And once you use it, nobody, not even the Karen in pearls, can ever take that from you.